Let's get into the Ravens side, because this was an embarrassing performance on every account. First half, it was the defense, can't stop Mahomes getting first downs, and then the entire game, Lamar Jackson and this offense could not get going whatsoever. It was, honestly, it was very, very embarrassing for all accounts. The Chiefs' defense smothering Lamar Jackson in this offense, and basically the number 2 defense in the league, I believe. They couldn't stop Mahomes, whether it be Pacheco running the ball, Mahomes running the ball, Travis Kelce, big-time receptions. I mean, they really couldn't do anything in the first half to gain some sort of momentum, and the offense just was abysmal the entirety of the game. I want to know, how surprised are you that the Baltimore Ravens fell in the fashion that they did in the AFC Championship game against these Kansas City Chiefs?
I told you when we were picking the games that I was very undecided about this one, and I was thinking about picking the Chiefs, right? And then I thought about it, and I decided to stick with the Ravens. It was a mistake. They came up small. I think their defense played well enough, right? They played against the Patrick Mahomes and Kelce and Pacheco and Rice and the Chiefs offense, which is a formidable one, and they only gave up 17 points. That should have been good enough for them to win the game. They only scored 10 points, right? And they made a huge number of mistakes. The Zay Flowers fumbling the ball and a touchback, right? And that's a rookie mistake, right? It is. And why he was the one that was catching that ball instead of Odell Beckham, who was missing in action for most of the game. He only really came in late in the third quarter and the fourth quarter to play. I don't know. Was he hurt or something? I don't know.
They just couldn't get open.
They didn't have him in the game hardly at all, and he's a special piece there, and particularly in a game like this. So I had some issues with the Ravens' offensive scheme, and Lamar coming up small, man. The question comes back now. Is he really the player in the big game, right? Because he did win the playoff game last week. It wasn't against the greatest competition, right? You're still playing against the Texans, who were surprised to be there to begin with, and beating them, that was expected. But we expected them to beat the Chiefs, and the Chiefs had the heart of a champion, and they managed to win that game. And I will say also, on the, I thought the defense, they came up strong. The one thing that they didn't do, which is one thing Bill Belichick always says, take away the other team's best piece. Right. They didn't take away Travis Kelce. And a lot of teams throughout the season were able to do that, right? You didn't see Kelce getting 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 catches in games during the season because the teams knew that the wide receiver core was weak. So they doubled up on Kelce and didn't let him get into the game. That didn't happen in this game. Kelce was catching balls all over the place. And I don't understand that. I mean, that would have been the scheme I would have gone after. They weren't able to stop the run the way I expected they would. And, Mahomes, he's going to make some plays and he's going to have a decent game. But the fact that they weren't able to bottle up Kelce was very surprising to me. And on offense, all the mistakes they made and how frustrated they seemed out there with the Chiefs having a very good scheme against them and Chris Jones having a great game. That's my take on the game.
There was a lot there. First off, you're right about that. Zay Flowers made 2 back-to-back rookie mistakes. The first one would be you catch a 4-yard ball from Lamar Jackson. You run a decent amount after you caught it, but that's like a 54-yard reception there. And then you decide, let me taunt on a guy. Let me throw the ball at him, spin it, and look down on the guy. You're still losing by, 14 points at that point. What are you doing? And then following up by, diving for the end zone when you're going to get hit. Like, that's an obvious play. And I believe it was Snead who knocked the ball out. That was a massive play on the part of Snead. My question is, why the hell did Todd Monken decide, you know what? Let me start Justice Hill over Gus Edwards. Justice Hill's a guy who has 84 carries for 387 yards and only 3 touchdowns, compared to Gus Edwards, who had basically 200 carries for 810 yards and 13 touchdowns. Justice Hill outsnapped Gus Edwards, who, if you take a look at the numbers, still outrushed Justice Hill on the same amount of carries. Don't understand what the part of that was. And if I told you that this was the lowest rushing total since week 1 of last year, would you believe me? This is the first time since week 1 of last year that they had under 100 rushing yards. They decided, you know what, we're going to give up on the run. And so did Lamar Jackson. We saw him last week rush for 100 yards. This game, he rushed for 54. And we saw him in the pocket looking, trying to get his guys open, trying to be more of that pocket passer. Instead, he had several opportunities when he was just dancing around in there. He could have just taken off. And another thing, and we don't have the clip up, but there was one play early in the game. They kept getting third and out. He runs up the middle of the field, and instead of just, tucking the ball and running, he's staring at L'Jarius Sneed, who's running with him, trying to break off him instead of just using his legs, using his athletic ability, using his speed to potentially break away and gain several more yards. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And at one point, and I mentioned this a couple of times, kind of in a joking way of just how much Lamar Jackson was doing early in the game. This actually happened where Lamar Jackson was the leading rusher, leading passer, and was number 2 on his team in receiving yards because of the bopped up ball where he caught it. That nearly was picked off, by the way. But he was nearly the leading receiver, rusher, and passer in the game. I think Lamar Jackson, he tried to be something that he's not. Or rather, he was trying to be a new version of himself instead of relying on what he knew. We saw that against the Texans, where he was more of himself. He had 150 passing yards, 100 rushing yards, and played as effectively as probably I've ever seen Lamar Jackson play in the big time moments.
2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns.
Right, he had 4 total touchdowns. And in this game, what do we see? Looking, trying to find an open guy, dancing around in the pocket, trying to find Zay Flowers or OBJ break open, and it led to sacks, loss of yards, bad passes. At one time, it led to a fumble. It led to him throwing
key interception.
A triple coverage interception that made no sense on why he's throwing the ball.
Why did he even throw the ball?
You could argue that it was PI, but the ball was so short, and I believe it was Isaiah Likely. He was well beyond the ball at that point. So it was just a totally bad offensive scheme, and the defense in the first half, like I mentioned earlier, they had a very, very difficult time stopping Mahomes and stopping, this Chiefs offense. And very early on, there was one player on the defense in particular that kept getting cooked on the third and shorts and on the I believe it was 4th and 3 where Travis Kelce caught it. It was Brandon Stevens, number 21. In the biggest moments, right? I believe he was the defender on, when Mahomes got his legs taken out from under him and he tried to flip it to Travis Kelce and he made that miraculous catch. I believe Brandon Stevens was in coverage there. On the 4th down that Travis Kelce caught, Stevens was in coverage. On a crucial 3rd and short, Stevens was in coverage. Very bad first half for Stevens, who gave up a lot of crucial first downs. He was targeted 5 times in the game. Every single time he was targeted, the receiver caught the ball for 48 yards. Kyle Hamilton, he was all over the place. He was targeted the most. He gave up the most receptions in the game, but he was trying his best out there early in the game to make the big-time stop, to tackle very well. Kyle Hamilton was doing the best he can, and he did give up 1 touchdown that Travis Kelce, Mahomes had maybe a tiny window to throw it to. He nailed Travis Kelce, as Mahomes generally does, hit his receivers in some of the smallest windows pretty much ever. But all around, the Ravens, this was ugly. And I'm going to bring it back to what I've said before in the past. I think the question needs to be spoken about: can a predominantly agile, mobile, running quarterback win the big game? Get to the big game? Because we've seen in the history of the NFL, these super mobile quarterbacks, they don't win Super Bowls.
You don't think Mahomes is in that mold?
I think we see he's a much better thrower than pretty much anyone else in the NFL. Josh Allen would probably compete with him, although I think that's close. Mahomes, I'd probably give the slight edge. But we're talking about predominantly running quarterbacks, right? Michael Vick, Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson, even Randall Cunningham. They don't win Super Bowls. Now, Cam Newton got the closest.
Yeah, he did get the
Super
Bowl.
He was 15-1, and then look what happened. The Broncos defense suffocated him. Couldn't do anything. Had a very, very difficult time in that game. I just think, I'm not saying that it's a never. Lamar Jackson definitely has the best chance at winning a Super Bowl based on his physical attributes. He's a better runner than Cam Newton. I would say better passer. This season, it looked pretty damn good. But winning the big game, I think we need to put into question, there's a chance Lamar Jackson will never win a Super Bowl. There is a chance. I'm not saying I don't think it's that big, just because I think with the Ravens have been building their roster with the amount of pieces they brought in. I think there is a chance he could win. But I kind of agree with you. OBJ where was he?
Where was he?
He played about 2/3 of the snaps, but he was ineffective the entire game. First half, I don't think he was targeted a single time. He was smothered, couldn't get anything going. He had a couple decent catches in the game, but overall, I
didn't even see him in there in the first half much.
You really didn't see him at all. Duvernay was out there. Bateman
third
was
and
out
fourth
there.
quarter, the end of the third quarter and the fourth quarter, he surfaced.
Right.
And had a few catches.
If I'm not mistaken, they're paying him $12 million to do what in this playoff
He didn't do
game?
much in this game.
He didn't really do much during the season as well. It wasn't a massive factor during the season, but there we go. Lamar Jackson.
I think on the Ravens side of the ball, it was the defense played fine. I think they did their
first
job.
First half though.
Yeah, well, the Chiefs moved the ball, but the Ravens bent, but didn't break much. I mean, 17 points in total.
You should be able
That's
to
pretty low for the Chiefs. If the Ravens' offense had been what it's been all season, they should have won this game. I think on the offensive side of the ball, it was total frustration.
Absolutely.
And I think when they first came out, they were very nervous.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs weren't. They were ready to go. They marched the ball right down the field and scored. Right?
I think you saw the difference between the experience
and actually the Ravens came back with the long
doesn't.
pass to Flowers, right?
Yeah.
And scored
immediately. Yeah,
and
it was
scored
great.
too. And that looked like, hey, here we go. This is going to be
a
really good game. And then there was just total frustration for the Ravens and mistakes. And it was hard to watch. Actually, it was hard for me to watch some of that. It was I would say, come on, they've got to find a way to get things going, get a rhythm going, and they never did.
Well, Lamar Jackson's probably going to be the MVP. But this defense gave up, on average, 16.5 points a game. So you round that up, that's 17 points a game. The offense averaged during the regular season 28.4 points a game.
Should have won the game.
Take a look at the number real quick. They only scored 10.
Yeah.
So basically, they scored a third of the points they averaged during the regular season.
Yeah. The Chiefs had a plan for them, and they also defeated themselves with the turnovers and the nervousness. I think they were uptight. They were too tight for that game.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, if you want to check out the full episode, make sure you click the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to listen to this show anywhere you go, make sure you go to anchor.fm/The Harvey Hour or anywhere you get your podcasts.